which is very important. I want the film to end with a gesture of possibility rather than complete closure. Continuity just doesn't really fit into the kind of pictures I'm making. You know, it helps, I guess, sometimes, but it doesn't have to be an overriding concern. And in most films, it's the most important thing.
Looking back in hindsight, which of your films has given you the most pleasure and which has come closest to achieving what you set out to achieve?
Probably Flirt, but besides, up until Flirt, I thought it was Theory of Achievement, or Ambition, one of those. Yeah. That's the right balance, because they were shorter films, the right balance between the pleasures of the plastics of the medium and the pleasures of telling a story.
I'd probably pick Surviving Design. I think that's probably my favourite of you.
That's my least favourite of my films.
I'd probably pick Ambition, Theory of Achievement.
That's okay. Well, it was kind of pejorative, you know, it's kind of a, I use simple in the term of like retarded. But it does also imply a kind of stripping down, you know, maybe a holdover or a different version of the technique I used in Trust to, you know, strip the Maria character down to her essentials, to get rid of all the accumulated junk of personality, and get rid of that and see what's left. And I think that's what happens to Bill. Bill comes back at the end and he's stripped down. All his ideas about who he is have been shown to be useless.
You know, Simple Men had actually been one of those scripts in a slightly different incarnation that had been one of the movies I had failed to produce in my first life as Hal's producer. So it was nice that I was given a second chance.
I wrote a version of it in like 1985, 1986. But there was something that happened in the fallout of Trust. It's like I had seen the film so many times and had to talk about it so much, and trying to think about what really has been achieved here with this film. And one thing that was really clear is that I had taken this girl and put her on a pedestal that was so high. You know, I like deified this girl, and I wanted to do that, and it was fun and exciting, and you know, I thought, you know, in a way it was, I don't know, I felt like the sculptor in Pygmalion or something. Like I'd really fallen in love with this girl I had created and put up on this pedestal. But, you know, probably there's something wrong with that, you know? And so I really wanted to investigate guys in the next movie. Like, oh, how are guys when they're talking to each other about girls? And I thought the opportunity of two brothers who were very different. Again, one is more contemplative. Dennis is the dropped-out philosophy student or something like that. He's shy and retiring and thinks about everything maybe too much. And then his brother is a doer. You know, it's a criminal. Just do it. Move ahead. Don't think about it too much. And then these two would kind of move out into the world. And it was really about the older brother's confrontation with, you know, the self-mythology he'd built up, I guess.
We were both students at SUNY Purchase University. He in the film department and myself in the theater arts department. Early in our time at SUNY Purchase, for certain classes, they furnished the acting students to the film students. About 3/4 of the way into our time at SUNY Purchase, they disbanded that, just short of my being able to work with Hal on his senior film.
But we always stayed in touch. No, actually, we fell out of touch for a while. I just didn't know where he was. And then just before we made The Unbelievable Truth, I bumped into him, I think, on the street or something, and I just gave him the script, and that's how he came back in.
I think I sort of talked my way into Simple Men, if I remember. I don't know what you could ask him. I don't know that he had me in mind to play, or maybe he didn't know what to do with me. I'm not sure. But I remember lobbying. I said, I'll play anything.
It's not so much like I said, I'm going to build an ensemble. It's just, you have a good experience with a group of people. The next thing you write has probably been written while you were making the first piece, or maybe at the same time, they were written at the same time. When you're really writing, when you're really making movies, you're not closing the book on one chapter when you finish a movie. There's a real continuity.
Yeah, Hal was really working extremely hard. I remember at that time, he was always saying, after this one, I'm going to take a big break, going to relax. Relaxing involved pre-production and post-production, essentially. And so I guess it was 1992, he was ready to start work on Simple Men. Big leap in budget for Hal at this point.
We took the whole crew, and we weren't putting him in dorms anymore. We were actually putting him in hotel rooms. Holiday Inn, Crown with an E, Plaza. It was luxurious. We basically had one foot in Hollywood. That we had a $3 million budget, and not only that, we were pulling off Houston, Texas for Long Island.
My fame had risen in indirect proportion to my finances, and suddenly I was a bad example of a guy who was making non-union films and getting a lot of exposure.
We tried to figure out where the hell we could go and make this film, still look like Long Island.
When we got to Houston, Hal would have us, this is something that very rarely, if ever, happens, rehearse in the space or at the location you were going to be actually shooting in. After a couple hours or whatever it was of rehearsal, he'd bring in the department heads, the sound people, the camera people, the lighting people, to take a look. And then everybody goes away and comes back on the day that you're actually going to shoot, and it's seamless.
I know it's going to shift now. Maybe I didn't in the early films. I think in The Unbelievable Truth and in Trust, perhaps I really demanded a particular reading, until the actors just beat me down. It's just like, we can't do that. And then I learned, and now I look forward to that moment where what I have written is going to take on this other color. So I'm probably even more careful about how I write the dialogue now. The dialogue in my movies, over the years, that's the one thing that doesn't change. We never, the actors and I never reach a point where we say, I think he should say something different.
I remember there were 4 words that we used to joke about. He'd say faster, slower, a little louder this time, a little softer, And essentially, the communication between he and Mike Spiller, his director of photography, was, again, very minimal.
Whenever I'm looking at the monitor or composing a shot, I mean, it's wordless now. It's not an intellectual thing at all. It's just intuitive. That shouldn't be. We should get that out or bring it in more. Or it's balance. Constantly looking. That's for me what composition is. Balance. But also in writing, there's a way to think about that in terms of how the music you keep talking about, in terms of how the dialogue flows. I mean, I'm one of those guys who will stay up late at night revising one sentence again and again and again, saying, should it really scan as 5 syllables or 7, If I'm going to make it 7, maybe I should reduce the previous line of the other person to 2.
Very hard for me still, after these many projects with him to describe essentially what he's making. And I think that speaks to his foundation or genesis as a painter.
Again, I tend to see the film as centered on Bill, the older brother's gradual resisting realization of, coming to terms with who he is and stuff, and his prejudices and his hopes and his desires. I kind of think that he has, desires and hopes that, he's never even told himself. Like, when he meets Karen Silas and he meets the Kate character, he sees someone who's got all sorts of vulnerabilities and stuff, but is strong in spite of these things, or maybe because of them. Maybe she's a stronger person, a more solid individual because she can admit her vulnerability, something like that, I think. And he becomes very, very attracted to that, but he has a harder time taking that technique and putting it on himself. And I think he just blames other people for problems. The girl Vera, who ran away with his money, his father, who was an irresponsible, politically committed leftist when he was a perfectly good shortstop. I mean, how could he possibly do that to us? He takes it personally like that. So I think the comedy and the structure of the story is really about how are we going to send this tough guy into all these different situations where he's forced to confront the image of himself that he's built, and it keeps getting threatened and cracked and pushed and shoved around. What's it going to take to have this guy just say, I don't want to be the guy I think I am, I want to change. And moves to the end of the movie where he looks down the pier at his old man who is wearing the same things. I mean, they're a mirror image of each other in some ways. I mean, I think Bill, as throughout the story, I mean, he says it once or twice, I mean, denigrates the old man for like walking away from his family and from his fame and success as a baseball player. This pisses Bill off. And it probably has a lot to do with why he's a criminal. Why he's proud of being a criminal. He says, "I'm a good criminal. I mean, I'm not like these other guys. I mean, I'm good, but I'd also be a good." What's he say in the movie? He'd be good at something else too, like a horticulturalist or something.
Because Hal was so clear about the overall structure, or the story, that it, when you're clear about where you're going, you can take breaks and do whatever the hell you want, and entertain folks. I mean, I think Hal consciously and knew, and I'm sure I remember him saying, it's like, got to keep him interested. You can't be throwing ideas at him all the time. And so he becomes, it's clown-like.
I knew I wanted to do something right in the script. I think I write something. It's been, in terms of the length of the film, I think like the past 20 minutes have been this really calm, quiet, subdued, mysterious, detached mystery thing. And this has got to break at some point, and I want it to break with a bang. And I said, Dad, I've got to economically get them from being this way, the two boys and the two girls, and being so standoffish, and I need to get them to be, making out, whatever, and having a good time together. It's just an ellipsis. It's just a simple thing like that. And that's it. But the dance, a dance generally shows you so much about people that they might try to hide. Elena had come up with that move she does because she was working with our friend Travis in the play, and
you don't get any better than Elena moving like that.
In the play, she's supposed to break out into this like African thing for like 5 seconds. So we just attenuated that arm thing she does. And then I thought, wow, this could tell us a lot about the guys, them kind of very attentive to her body, they're physically alert to her just being in the room, and then trying to cop what she's doing, So there's a certain amount of choreography, but it's not super tight. Like I never knew from take to take what Martin or Bill, Bill, who at that time had a hard time just walking down the street. I mean, what would he do if he has to dance? It was really fun. By the time I was making Simple Men, there was this, I only know this because I wrote it in my notebook so many times, just the joy of making a picture, of seeing something. That the desire to see something ought to be very important to my filmmaking. I think I might have been apologetic about that earlier. Like, oh, I'm just making this event happen because I want to, like that's indulgence or something. But I think that's what the world must want from us, right? If we make films, we got to love. We want to see things that maybe other people haven't thought about yet.
When we shot the last frame or shot of Simple Men, and I lay my head on Karen Silas's shoulder, and I remember having to do something very unnatural. It speaks to a lot of the different things, my trust of Hal, in Hal. I thought to myself, this is some type of awkward tableau. This is some type of nefarious pietà. I didn't understand in the moment, which is fine. It's just my wife says, make your own movie if you don't like it. But at the same time, I kind of did understand and was trying to make the leap in terms of what his vision was. The movie begins with the line, "Don't move." It ends with the line, "Don't move." And compositionally, I think it all goes back to, again, Hal's foundations as an artist. Bill McCabe finally finds solace only in the next beat of the movie that we're not going to see. He's going to get a pair of handcuffs slapped on him. So this is, Bill's little moment of, respite and calm in the storm, but it's only going to last for a moment. It's only going to last for a beat.